First speaker this morning is, what's your first name? Shannon Schmall. Did I get it right? Schmall? Okay, did I get it right? I'm horrible with names, so anyway. Using Worldwide Telescope to build interactive kiosks in different content area. So here's Shannon.
Can everyone hear me if I just talk?
I think so.
Oh, good. This one.
Got it. Okay. All right. So thank you guys. So I'm going to be talking about some interactive kiosks that we have outside of the dome that we built using Worldwide Telescope. And just to kind of give an introduction, here they are, nicely installed in our lobby there. They just went up this summer in about August, so we're still kind of testing everything out. But what we noticed was that a lot of people were coming into the planetarium and telling us, either through a formal survey that we did or just in comments, that there wasn't enough to do or see in the lobby before going into a planetarium show. And we used to have a lot of exhibits in this space when we first opened about 50 years ago. So we're slowly trying to go back to that to have some of this more tangible and more interactive pieces out in the lobby beforehand. So we did apply for a grant, and we were awarded $4,500 from the DART Foundation to buy touchscreen all-in-one computers. And so we got 3 of them, partially because we have like 3 really nice spots along our wall to do that. But this way we could also cover 3 major content areas: general astronomy, cultural astronomy, which also historical astronomy is part of that, and then also, since we have an active astronomy department at Michigan State University where we sit, we could also feature the latest breaking news and research from our scientists and be a way for them to support their broader impacts for their grants. And part of the reason why we wanted to do touchscreens is that there's some great advantages. A lot of what we do in astronomy and what we teach in astronomy are really pretty images, or images that we falsely colored, and so we don't have a lot of actual tangibles for people to see, unlike other museums and informals. So this is a way to give some choice and control to people in looking at what type of artifacts we can offer, which are these digital images and imagery. And so also the advantage of the touchscreens is that they have this nice small footprint. We still use this lobby for event space and as waiting space, and we do have big crowds on occasion. So we didn't want to have too big of a footprint being taken up, so these can just go on the wall very nicely. The touchscreens we ended up buying were these HP Envy 27-inch. I specifically wanted 27 inches because they were easy to wall mount, but they're also large enough that 2 people can comfortably interact with it together to support social learning, which is going to also support motivation and comprehension and sense making. I don't know if these particular ones are actually still being made. I think they're being discontinued. We got them on sale. This was a theme. I'd find something, I'd get really excited, and then they'd be out of stock. But HP is still making Envies. I think they're just slightly different. So there are some out there. Also, we installed them right above outlets, and we covered them so people couldn't unplug them, which is very important. And this is what they look like on the screen on the right there. They're meant to sit on a desktop, not be wall mounted. So we had to have our mounts custom made by our machine shop on campus. But they actually did use those. They cut those feet off and refashioned them to be wall mounts. So it can be done. There you can see the wall mounts on the bottom. And then we use Worldwide Telescope. Part of the reason why we wanted an all-in-one computer was so that we could have Windows running and use Worldwide Telescope natively on that Windows computer. How many of you are actually familiar with Worldwide Telescope? Okay, so a few people. So I know that people have talked about it at GLPA before, usually more as a full dome thing as far as I know. But you can use this on your desktop. It's sort of meant as a way to help think about data. It's meant for scientists as well as people who are just interested in astronomy. It has built-in imagery of the night sky, actually on the sky at the right angular size, so you can fly into objects and fly out of them, so you have them in context of where they should be. And they also have built-in panoramas from the Apollo landing sites and from the Mars rovers, so these are all really nice things that it already has. But you can also get images that have that AVM data, I think it's called, that you drop it in and it knows exactly where to put it, at what angular size, so it's in the right spot in the sky. And so you can then fly people through space out to these objects, as well as around solar system objects. So it does have all the planets and several of the moons there, 3D models of them that people can explore. You can also import your own work there. So we have a lot of photospheres that we've been messing around with in our dome. You've probably heard me or John talk about it a lot at previous conferences? If so, there's a separate piece of software called Sphere Toaster that you can use to process those and import them so people can actually use the touchscreen to explore these spherical images. You can also build these tours within Worldwide Telescope, and this is how we built our interactive kiosks. You're basically making a PowerPoint slide where you add in images and text, except your background is space, this nice, really imagery of space. Visual, you can, in visible light, you can do it in radio light and so on, or it's surface of the moon, or it's these panoramas. That's your background that you can interact with. And then you can import your own images. So these buttons here, these are all images that were just made in Photoshop. And then you link these to other slides. You can do something similar in PowerPoint. We're just doing this in Worldwide Telescope. But you link this to other slides, and through those slides you can also create animations where you're actually panning, zooming in, zooming out. You can cross-fade images in and out as part of this animation. And you do this usually with a right click on the actual slide. You can set a lot of settings. So it's fairly intuitive and easy to use. One of our touchscreens I had a student build over the summer. I said, here's the basics, and she did it. And so it's a fairly intuitive system. So there are existing tours as well, so you can borrow from those, but for the most part we made our own and we made it interactive using those button features. So, like I said, we have 3 major content areas. So these are the first ones that we're doing. We have plans to change this out about once a year or so, depending on what sort of major initiatives might be going on at MSU or what shows we might be bringing in if we wanted to try to change our content quickly in order to match a show that we might be going on. So we have that connection outside of the dome to help prepare or allow people to learn more after a show. So the first one is called Multi-Wavelength Universe. So this is all about how we can see, understand the universe using light that we can't necessarily see. We have a few options. One is you just explore the universe. So this is just a pan around, pinch and zoom sort of thing. And you can choose which wavelength you want to look at the universe in, or look at the sky in. And we also can fly out to specific objects, so you can pick a category like starbirth, and you can pick an object like the Orion Nebula and fly there, or you can pick stars and go to the Pleiades. Cross fades in a multi-wavelength image, and then there's a caption there sort of explaining what you're seeing. And this is based off of something I actually did at the Adler when I was an intern there about 4 years ago. So, hi Mark. So, it's in his SVL.
I just came there so you'd say that.
Yeah. So that was the first one. Since that was pretty much already built and with permission I got to use it, we tried that one out. We also built one about going to the moon and the Apollo missions to match the show we're running this year, which is Back to the Moon for Good. So we wanted to have that connection. So this is the one our student built. We used those panoramas it already has for the Apollo landing sites. We imported audio so you can hear the astronauts talking. There's that great one from Apollo 17 of them singing A Lovely Month in May. Yeah. Thank you. That one. That keeps playing in our lobby, and it's great. But we also had different categories like pop culture. So we can talk about the cultural impact of the moon landings on where we are today with our space program and so on. So we wanted to try to, again, hit that more historical and cultural perspective with this. We also allow people to just explore the moon. This is very popular. I come back and it's in some really interesting places. We've also set them all up so after a couple of minutes, it automatically goes back to the start screen so that we assume if it's sat there for about 3 minutes, someone's not actually using it. So the last one that we did was about astronomy in Chile. For those of you who were at GLPA last year, I got to go down to Chile as part of the Astronomy in Chile Educator Ambassador Program, or ASEP. Renee's in here too, she went too. So this is a touchscreen now that's based off of that. Like I said, we wanted to support MSU science. We have the SOAR telescope down in Chile. We got to visit that, so this is sort of our way of doing that, while also supporting the ASEP program that I was a part of. So we actually show the Andes Mountains and let people fly through those. This is built in again. This is from Bing Maps, by the way, so we can show how tall the mountains are and what the terrain is like. And so this helps people understand why Chile is so important for this and for telescopes. You also need to lock it down. Our IT folks helped us with that, though Mark did inform me that all you really have to do is put a no UI command in the startup with it, and it's beautiful. I couldn't remember that from 4 years ago. But that's one way you can lock this down so people
Start
can.
with the app or start by the PC?
When you start up the computer in the startup file, you can tell it to run this automatically, and if you put a -no UI, it'll take out all the user interface
Brilliant.
and allow people to use it without escaping. Just don't keep your keyboard and mouse out. Just don't do that. So that's the main thing there.
Fine to know that.
And these are files I can send you. So if you want them, if you have your own touchscreens or you want to get your own and you just want to have some things to start out with, I'm happy to send these over to you. So just email me and I'm happy to send the files to you. All right. I think I'm done.
We do have a couple minutes for questions, if anybody has any questions.
Mark?
I just let people know, or if you want to start working with Worldwide Telescope, right now, there's actually the American Astronomical Society sponsoring a contest. Part of that's for people working in the planetary world. Shannon, you should submit these to the
All right.
contest. There are cash prizes.
Ooh.
There's also some online training sessions that if you go to the American Astronomical Society Worldwide Telescope, they'll have some sessions. I think maybe we should get you to do one of these Google Hangouts on how you build these.
Okay.
If you're willing, that would be awesome.
Sure. All right.
To get to the different slides
Mhm.
and integrate the PowerPoint, how do you go about doing that? Is there a GUI there that helps you set that up, or do you have to go there?
Yeah, so to do this, and this is sort of nuts and bolts, you go to Explore and you say Start New Tour or Open New Tour, and then from there you can add new slides, you can put in your transitions, you can each slide put in even animation, so you can say Set Start Camera, Set End Camera. So over the course of that slide, it'll actually pan over to something else or zoom in. And so this is how you can actually build in your own animations.
So do you hit the record button and do the movement and then stop, or
No, you say, you set it, I want it to start at the Big Dipper and pan over to Cassiopeia. So you say set start camera while you're looking at the Big Dipper, you move it to Cassiopeia, set end camera, it will automatically pan it over however long you set that slide to be. So let's say you say it's a 2-second slide.
Excellent.
So.
And then the reset function.
So you can just, on this drop down, you can set next slide right here. So I have it set next to the start slide. So that once that slide's done, if you set it for like 5 minutes so it's a more interactive piece of it, you can set next start slide so after 5 minutes it automatically goes back to the front.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think that's just about all the time we have for
Very
questions
smart.
today. I'd like to thank
Well
everybody
done.
for coming today. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to the paper session 2C. Our second speaker this morning is Steve Berkland, and his topic is Open Your Dome to Closed Captioning.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. 8 million people in the United States have some form of hearing loss, and about half of them are over 65. Now, until now, providing closed captioning in your dome was expensive, involved, and ultimately a courtesy for the most part. But the time has come now that courtesy has to give way to expectation, essentially. For example, at the beginning of 2017, it's still a little unclear when, the Department of Justice is amending the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 to require movie theaters to provide closed captioning or some form of captioning for all of their movies, no matter what. Now, we don't normally associate ourselves as movie theaters, but we're really close. So, movie theater or not, expectation or not, fulfilling this need is simply the right thing to do. Now, to that end, the Apple Planetarium has been designing a web-based closed captioning system that visitors, guests could use on their mobile devices. The idea being they could come here, log in, and start closed captioning and always have access to everything in our museum. And I'd like to show you some of that because after a few months of operation, we realized that there are a few areas that are really important when it comes to either picking or designing a closed captioning system. So we're going to experiment with that for a second. Now, this talk it'll be best if you're on the Bishop Gallery Wi-Fi signal with your phone, but if you can't get on, this first section you can be on any Wi-Fi and it'll work. So I encourage you to take out your phones and in some way get some Wi-Fi signal and go to adlercaps.org. That's the website we'll be going to. And then select GLPA Captions 1, it's at the bottom, and follow the on-screen instructions. Now, for those of you who may not be able to access or don't have your phone handy, I'm going to explain what that's all about in a second, but let's talk briefly about usage statistics. This is what you're looking at right now. AdlerCaps.org is our current captioning system. It has all of our shows except for our live Sky Tonight show captioned in it. And for the most part, we have some good uses. We've been tracking data for about 2.5 months, and in that time, 22 people have used closed captioning. What's interesting is about a quarter of them have been starting the captionings up to 10 minutes after the show has started. Presumably, they tried to see the show first, then realized they need captions and tried to start the show. Something else kind of interesting and a little bit unfortunate is that we do provide feedback at the end of the captioning system, and then if there's any problems, but that feedback has simply not been used. Now, let's talk about the experiment that we're going to run here. The participants, anyone who has their cell phone that's actually participating, will essentially start their captions at a certain point. But a guest during a show really has no idea what the content is of the show, right? So if you tell them when to start, it's up to them to figure out if that point has been reached. So to start this captioning, I'm going to use something that you guys have no idea of. It's a boat crossing in front of the sun, an animation of that. And then the next, say, minute or so of my talk will be captioned on your device. So, is everyone ready? At least?
GLPA 1?
GLPA 1, yes, press GLPA 1, and then get the start button ready, and follow the instructions when it applies. At this point, it's necessary to remind planetarians that a deaf guest can't hear. This might seem tautological, but such a guest can't be told when to press start. They have to be shown. In one of our shows, the starting point is as soon as you can see any stars or any imagery overhead on the dome. In the case of this experiment, it was when the boat passes in front of the sun. Now, this ambiguity results in variable start times and the captions being out of sync with the show. Now, a guest might respond to this by hitting refresh. So try it. What happened when you hit refresh? It started over, right? Completely started over. So hopefully this sort of indicates that there are some features here that we need to address. Syncing is a big problem, especially when the guest themselves hits the start button. It's simply ambiguous. Also, as was seen by our statistics, it's possible for there to be a decision to use the captioning late, which then automatically makes it out of sync. Also, there's a situation to consider with accident recovery. Essentially, someone hitting refresh or someone hitting reload, or let's say like a toddler is sitting in your lap and the toddler's playing with the phone and decides to turn it off. All of that will affect their ability to see captioning. And then there's the sort of elephant in the room light on the dome, which I'm sure some of you are thinking to yourself, wow, this is really bright. And it's still, even our system is a red text on black background. And so I'd like to discuss some of these. When you're coming up with your own captioning system, trying to decide either what to do or what to buy, these are 3 areas you really should consider when you're purchasing a system or designing a system. Now, the Adler came up with a new version of a system that solves these problems. Now, this is the one that does require you to be part of the Bishop Galaxy Wi-Fi, if you were able to connect. So if you were, go ahead to adlercaps.org again, and don't select GLPA Captions 2 until I tell you. I'm going to do a quick setup here. If you do happen to select GLPA Captions 2, just hit back and go from there. Just give it a second.
No.
Sorry?
Are you talking to Chicago or local server?
No, I'm talking to this computer right here. All right, now go ahead and hit GLPA Captions 2. In a perfect world, you guys some of you will start populating this list. There we go. There's one. There's a few others. So you can see that people are joining this list. And then for those of you who actually did successfully connect, in a moment you should be getting captioning. If you didn't connect, just hit refresh and you should be able to pop back on. There we go. So this version of closed captioning is essentially the user, you, is setting up a network handshake with this computer in sort of a web chat room format, right? And I'm the one clicking the start button. Or the automated system that you have in your theaters is the one clicking the start button, and the captions are being broadcast to all of your phones, essentially. You can hit refresh, you can hit reload, you can turn the phone off and on, and it will still catch up, essentially. So, that's just a quick little test of our system here. Now, the one thing we didn't discuss, now that covers accident recovery and syncing, but light on the dome is still a factor, right? Unfortunately, you're not going to solve that. The smartphone is just going to produce light no matter what. But there are ways to mitigate it. Turns out certain devices do certain things, different things when you have an active web page in the background. For example, sorry about that, an iOS device has one second. When an active website is present, there are two address bars at the top and bottom, which just add a bunch of white light to the dome. An Android device, when it's in full screen mode, has only one of those. And some Android devices have none. So you get a nice dark view. I guess the overall point is, the way to get around this is either to get really bright projectors, which is really expensive, where opening your cell phone just doesn't matter, or handing out a device that has a highly customizable browser. And that's one that you like that is a low light level. And that's pretty much the best option. Even though it is a little bit financially, unreasonable and logistically difficult, it really is the best option in this case. Now, for those of you who are looking for a system, you don't have to look far. The Adler is providing it. We're doing this for free. So if you'd like to have the system you just had, I can provide instructions for how you can set it up in your own dome, and you can use this closed captioning system on your own. You just have to let me know. Now, you could go other places, and I encourage you to look around. But just remember that there are three things essentially that are needed to make closed captioning viable. It has to address syncing, it has to address accident recovery, and it has to have low light on the dome. After all, everyone deserves the opportunity to learn the secrets of the universe. Don't limit them to people who can only hear it. Thanks.
We're going to go ahead and open it up for questions.
Yeah.
So I assume this is just for a recorded show. It's not going to do like live.
Yeah, the question is it for a recorded show or a live show? It is for a recorded show or a live show with a script. That's the key, right? It will not work for like your Sky Tonight show, for example, unless you really want to caption those every single season or every single week. But yeah. Yeah, Emily.
Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of apps have so basically what I've just noticed is that when my phone went to sleep, there was nothing in the app keeping that from happening.
Yes.
There are a lot of apps that continue to run on your lock screen. Have you investigated that at all?
That's actually an improvement that we're working on. Our current site actually tells you to turn your idle off in the system if you were to read the full site instructions. So we did it, no, nobody did. We did it based on that. But you're right, that's something we're looking into is to keep the thing from going to sleep. Yeah.
Two other observations. On my phone, your links to GLPA 1 and GLPA 2 triggered my antivirus screen to come.
Really?
Yeah.
I got that too, actually, because I tried to do it as well.
Interesting. That's the first I'm hearing of it. Thank you for letting me know.
And the other question I have for you, what happens if, usually when people turn their cell phones off in the theater, what happens if they get an incoming call where they're using your captioning?
Yes. So if they are using the captioning system and they're getting an incoming call, again, they're hard of hearing. So that's something we have to consider. They would be getting texts or things like that. But the effect is the same. They're using something else other than the intended app. We're not going to get around that, right? Now, in the beginning of our shows, we're hoping that we can create, we're going to create a rules of the room introduction screen as people walk in, which will say no cell phones except for closed captioning. And at least you'll indicate that there's a restriction there. So, yeah.
As you have the system, polished or nearly polished, I would like you to consider these problems that you're trying to address: incoming calls,
antivirus and so on. With a $90 Kindle, you could just hand them out of us.
Yes, that's actually one of the things that we're discussing. Is Kindle, and then Android has a similar Kindle device that we're really seriously considering. That's sort of a small tablet.
Yeah,
with a really customizable display.
Instead of having the uncontrolled and these problems you're trying to address, which are almost impossible to address, because who knows what people are bringing in. You just hand them a Kindle.
Yeah, we're actually leading toward the handing someone a device option to solve the problem.
So you did most of the legwork already.
Well, it would still be using this system. It would just be through handed device. Yeah.
All right, we have one more question back here.
Was wondering if you've reached out to WGBH in Boston. They're kind of the leaders in closed captioning and video description.
Not yet. I didn't
and
know they were.
Yeah, they're the main leaders. They've been for years. So I'd suggest reaching out to them.
Okay.
Because they'd probably be able to fix a lot of the issues pretty quickly. And if they couldn't, they'd probably know someone who could.
Awesome, that's good to know, thanks.
Also, there's also an app for the Kindle on the iOS devices, so that might be an avenue as well.
Okay, perfect. It's good to know.
All right, that's gonna do it for
Thank you
this
all.
session. Thank you, Steve. All right, we're ready to get started here with the next presentation. This is Chris Jansen, and his topic is Building the World's Highest Resolution Mirror Dome Planetarium.
Good morning, everyone. That's the title of the talk, the talk is a little bit different because can people take this and actually do it themselves? Yes, you could. Do you want to? So I debated, maybe the title of the talk should be explaining to my esteemed colleagues why I'm not crazy. Or another title, explaining to myself why I'm not crazy and you all are just here for the ride. It's a tremendous amount of work. There's some headaches, there's some moments where, nail-biting moments of, wow, I have a $29,000 projector from Sony that isn't what they told me it was. Am I gonna eat this cost? Holy cow. So there are some nail-biting moments. So I'm gonna share it with you, so if you attempt to do something like this, I'm gonna learn from his mistakes. Mirror projection, if you don't know what it is, it started out as kind of a novelty. It's, just keep going. Okay. It started off pretty low res, kind of, the warp wasn't perfect. It's just as a side ancillary projection. And it was written up, I think, 15 years ago. Paul Bork out of Australia wrote an article in IPS. People started duplicating it. Mirrors are, two vendors make mirrors now. But now things have gotten to the point where many people have them. The warp meshes are becoming perfect. And so I'm going to explain why this versioning technology was a perfect solution for our situation, maybe yours as well. So why use mirror projection? The pros of a mirror projection are the initial cost. If you have $6,000 to $18,000, there's a pretty good chance you could build a pretty darn nice system in your dome. The optimal use of a consumer-grade projector, the 16:9 aspect ratio of today's projectors is best, and I'll show you all these in detail, are best optimized for this technology, more so than fisheye. You can use the center of your theater. We're just finishing a renovation, and the idea that everything I do for the next 6 months in this design with the architects and the draftsmen must be centered on quality, the highest quality experience for everyone in that room. If I ever slip into this, I just got to get these kids through here. They're like cattle. I just need to get these kids in, and I need to show them this stuff, and I need to get them out because I have another show next hour. That is not where I need to go. I need to come back to everything. Every head in this room has to be the most quality possible experience, so they come back. And they leave saying, oh my God, I want to be a scientist. I want to be an engineer. So using the center of the theater for a person instead, a future scientist instead of my starball, was very important. Fiscal longevity, I'll also explain, very important in the age of budget cuts and things. And the ability to upgrade later. I'll explain these as well. Of course, the cons, a lot more on you, a lot more. That's why we have GLPA to share. You have to replace your mirror more often than lenses because it's exposed, it's open. And you get almost full dome coverage. This is, lumens to contrast battle is in every full dome system, but it needs to be mentioned. Okay, so the 16:9 projector chip, which is the cheapest projectors because everyone wants 16:9, they're selling them. So we've got, in our industry, we call this a 1K, just some definitions. A 1K fisheye is 1024 by 1024. Those of you who know this, bear with me here. 2K, 2048 by 2048. 4K, 496, and so on, and 8K is 8192. Huge, huge. There's only a couple of these theaters in the world. And so I don't like talking in K, because what's true 8K? I love talking in megapixels because we're so used to megapixels and chips are in megapixels and so on. And so I've converted these over with the radii to actual pixels on the dome. So for the rest of this talk, I'm going to talk in megapixels, and you can see the megapixels of our industry. Okay, so a 16 by 9 chip, if you're going to project a fisheye lens, oh, by the way, this is DVD and VHS. This is what I grew up on. Isn't that cute? If you go back and look at these now, like these old movies, you can't watch it for 15 minutes. You're like, oh, this is terrible, the rastering. And, so 1K has, this is the chip diameter. All these are pixels that you paid for. And a 1K inscribed fisheye, you're wasting all these pixels. And then likewise, 2K, all this is waste. If you had a 4K dome and you had an 8K chip, which doesn't exist really, all this is just black, just waste. So how does the mirror projection utilize a 16 by 9 chip most effectively? I'm going back to the, so a 1K projector is using 0.8 megapixels of the possible 1.3. A 2K projector is only using 3.2 of the possible 8.8. It's a tremendous amount of waste. But if the mirror projection system, which actually this is what projects on off the chip, and you do the math on this, and it's about 8.6 megapixels of an 8.8 megapixel chip. So the waste is very low. So in a sense, in terms of resolution, a mirror dome is superior to a fisheye lens in terms of use of a 16 by 9 chip. And then 4K and 8K, I'm not going to mention, you need multiple projectors. So the next aspect is designing the theater. I now don't have a star ball at the center. I can utilize it for my young minds. Fiscal longevity. Year one, if I were to do a full pit projector with a really nice piece of glass, I would be paying $50,000 to $70,000 for a projector, but instead I can do about $18,000. That includes computer, mirror. I figure about year 5, I'm going to be replacing the mirror. Okay. Year 10, how many people are running 10-year-old projectors in the center of the room? A couple people. How do they look? You know, they're starting to show they're getting long in the tooth. So at 10 years, you're probably looking at another capital campaign. You're going back to your donor. You're going back for your fundraisers and in some cases, like my theater, the feedback I would get is, yeah, right. There's probably very unlikely you'll get it. That's very negative sounding, but I got to be realistic. So in 10 years, can I save $18,000 just from gate fees in 10 years? Oh yeah. And maybe that projector is going to be a white laser. In fact, our projector, the Sony we had only like 2 hours on it, and I already know what projector I want next. That's a white phosphor laser, you know, with 1,000,000:1 contrast. I know what I want next. Just give it 5-10 years to get really cheap. At 15, buy another mirror perhaps, and then at year 20, I'm back again. So I can, maybe there'll be an 8K commodity projector in 20 years, right before I retire. You know, I can put an 8K system in the same room. So it's really important for us to be able to, I don't ever want to close because, oh, my projector died or looks terrible and I don't have the money. So I'll be able to upgrade as time moves forward much easier and always stay open. Some things that I found in the way is most of these mirror systems, they shine off a secondary mirror. This is a terrible idea. And I know many people who have systems, they're like, oh, you gotta shoot off a mirror because the projector is under the cove. And you lose 8 to 10% of your lumens right off this. Even the best, most expensive Lambda 4 mirrors, you're gonna lose 8 to 9% of your pixels and lumens. Boom. And then you lose another 8 to 9%. Boom. You're already fighting a lumens battle. Shoot direct. Shoot direct. So this is the one I'm currently using. It's not very bright. But because I'm shooting direct and I have a 65 reflectivity dome, it looks great. And some of you guys have seen it who come to the state meeting. 300,000:1 contrast, and it's just beautiful black in the dome. The alignment is always a problem for mirror dome systems, but Spitz and ENS now both support alignment through mirror dome. This is my alignment grid. It's accurate to about 1 centimeter. And it took 2 minutes. There's cameras and there's lasers, and you click a button and you wait 2 minutes, and You know, some people spend their whole career. Remember the old days of all-sky projectors? You know, I was told it takes like a couple weeks to install and then the rest of your career to perfect. Well, now it's done in 2 minutes with a click of a button. And I think it was like a $7,000 option from ENS, and you have it forever. I didn't want to just replace the star ball. I brought in people from the audience, and I had both the Starfield digital and the A4 up, and only but the brightest stars were indiscernible. So I knew at that point, I'm onto something here. I'm not going to continue to use my star projector when the 17 brightest stars are easily discernible, but everything else was about the same. So I knew it was time to take it out. The last thing I want to talk about here on these projectors is they have projectors. Now, Phil Gross talked about chromatic aberrations and problems off of mirrors, and Chuck Rao talked about it as well. You guys have seen this on the Barco days. These projectors have RGB alignment. They also have focal plane alignment, variable focal plane alignment. The Canon, I was talking to Scott Huggins last night, you can adjust your chip and it like bends the chip somehow. I don't know how, but you can focus in different planes as well as align, so you can compensate for chromatic aberration, different focal planes, and so on. So it's just a tremendous new world for mirror projection. So some pictures I just added in. This is our new theater. It's gorgeous. What started was going to be a $60,000 donation turned into a $350,000 donation just because they were so excited about doing this. Everything is maximized down to the near inch. You can see how low we got the dome. There's like a centimeter of clearance from the dome to the door frame. So everything about the theater, this is an Astrotech dome. They said we can only do 10-degree tilt, and I said I want 15, and they said you can only have 12, Chris. And I said okay, I'll do 12. So here in the back, projector, direct shine at the mirror, and there's no. It's behind the seats, so it's well protected, and so there's the system, and this can be replaced with whatever system, whatever projector comes out. Master control. So thank you guys. Oh, in the front, the old star projector will be seated right here in its own place of honor, so people can come and admire. I've got a slide rule right there that I ask people, like nobody knows what a slide rule is. That's what sent us to the moon right there. So thank you. If there's any questions, please don't hesitate to ask it. Come find it.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to open up for questions. Is any questions? Okay.
Find me later.
Seeing none, thank you very much. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the next paper, Student-Built LED Lighting Systems for Planetariums. And we have Sarah, Anthony, and Dana will be presenting this topic.
Well, good morning. Thanks for coming. We were wondering if we were going to have any kind of an audience today, so this is kind of nice to see so many family faces in the seats. So I'm Sarah Schultz. I'm the planetarium director at MSUM, Minnesota State University Moorhead. And these are two of my students. They're actually physics students who have just finished up a class in analog electronics. And so, you know, thinking about doing a planetarium on a budget, well, no budget, you're often looking for students to work on projects for you. And I had been impressed by some of the cove lighting systems, LED cove lighting systems that I had seen, you know, in other facilities. And I thought, man, it would be so cool if we could do something like that. And of course, Chris, if any of you know that Chris does Artemis gaming, along with Mike used to do it too. There was some tie-in with the LED lighting systems and the Artemis gaming, and I really wanted to kind of get into that because I'm really looking at certainly trying to keep my dome open by generating revenue, okay? And so I had an idea, hey, they just did electronics. Dana has experience with LED lighting systems for like underlighting in cars, because Dana works on cars. And so I thought, I wonder if I can wrangle some students in to do this for me. And so we wrote a grant to get basically a paid internship for them. And so we got the grant and they worked over the summer. And I kind of gave them very loose guidelines, like I just want to be able to light up the dome
and be able to control the lights and different colors and stuff, and maybe hopefully get it to interact with different things like Artemis, for example. And so they took this and ran with it. It was a student research project, and so they're using it. Like Tony is actually going to be taking it a little bit farther with a senior project for him, so a capstone project, because they're both seniors. I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. I hate losing seniors. I'm not going to let them graduate. I just decided that. If they ask me for letters of recommendation, I'm going to say no. Or I will write them and say you can't have them. So anyway, that's kind of the background. One interesting tidbit is that while this was going on, and I was working with these students to get this going and get the funding, I had the opportunity to get a used lighting system, an LED lighting system from Chris Janssen. And so I traveled over to Wausau and took it out with Chris. We removed it from the dome and I brought it home. It's like a 6-hour drive. I brought it home and we put it all in, and it works. And so now we have two systems. We've got the student-built one, and we've got the East Coast Control system that Chris had. And so we can kind of look at them side by side, which is really, really cool. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let them talk about the project and what they did and all the cool stuff that they did. So here you go.
Thank you, Sarah. I got it. So as far as our student basis, we physics majors, we look a little bit behind the lights too and see what we like. Well, LEDs are kind of a huge push in the electronics world. Part of the reason behind that is because the LED is built differently than any other lighting source compared to like the old incandescent bulbs we just tore out, which are terrible. And so basically we have these PN junctions, and this is the physics behind it, is so you have this combination happening where a photon's being emitted when you put a voltage through your LED, and that photon at different voltages is going to produce different colors, right? So we wanted to utilize this new lighting system, and here is actually one of the chips that we have. And when we put the power through here, it produces the light out of this. We have a red, green, and blue in each of these, and when we produce the different voltages through these LEDs, we're going to get our different light colors. And the cool thing about these specific lights is that they have a chip that runs every single LED in our 1700 LED system. So that's the really cool part, is we can control each LED by our code that we run. So we have control over 1700 LEDs. Addressable. Yep, addressable LEDs. So that's the big up in these, is we have control over these addressable LEDs. Unfortunately, there's 1,700 of them, so that makes it kind of interesting. But then we also had, this new LED system that we produced that we put in, which was cool. It's actually an amazing thing to have 2 LED systems in one dome that you can actually compare side by side. So this is the old system we took out. It's the old incandescent cove lighting, which, as we all know, they don't quite produce as much of this anymore. And we have the ECCS and the digital programmable, addressable LEDs. So there's a few differences with these. They're both amazing lighting systems. But the only big part is, with ours, we put about $500 into this system, which is pretty cool. And as a student research-based thing, which we had almost no funding for, $500, that was okay. And they were totally ready to run with $500 of materials, and just for us to research those specifically. So when we compare these two, here, again, your LEDs are gonna outdo the incandescents on most of them as far as, color options, brightness, wattage use, efficiency. And the big difference too, though, between these is you have the addressable LEDs, and these, they're really cool. We can still do colors per fixture. There's about 30 of those. 30 LED, or 30 foot, 64 fixtures, so. Again, short material list. We have the LEDs themselves. We have the programmable, there's power source. We have a power source for each. Here we just have the LEDs in the strip you can see on the right side. And that's actually the wiring behind those for the ECCS program. So, setup, again, here's our dome. This one is super simple. We have your computer connects to an Arduino. Your Arduino pumps out the code to the LEDs in one big circuit. And that runs the circumference of the dome. The power source, we have to source the power for each strip. So there's 6 strips that run our dome for the 1700 LEDs. And the power source is a 5 volt, 200 watt, so each power source can run 2 strips. So, and those are hardwired by our electrician from campus, and he's hardwired those directly into our electric system around the outside of the dome, so they're controlled by one switch. So we basically power them on, upload your code, and they're good to go. So, here's programming.
So once we got this installed on this system, which took about 3 weeks to install, we spent the rest of our time programming and creating codes and different variations for shows and or different types of options. Like we tried to get Artemis to go. The only limitation with our LED, addressable LEDs, is that our Mega right here isn't powerful enough. It doesn't shoot out enough data to all 1700. So we have to limit how fast we can go around the dome. Yes, so updating the code takes a longer time, where, and what we noticed with the ECC system, we noticed that theirs is instantaneous, where ours takes a little longer. This can be changed with maybe a different mega, different setup, maybe two. If we had 2 megas, we could split the dome in half, and it would increase the data supply. But other than that, our future applications, Sarah already talked about this. We want to get Artemis working with the lights and have it universally run. We also, I've been working on my senior project, interacting with sound. I want to take high pass and low pass filters and create like a frequency change to have LEDs interact with that, along with expanding our programs and expanding our diversity. That's about it.
Yeah. One video. 2 minutes?
Yeah, a couple more minutes.
Okay, good. We'll talk a little bit more. Will this play on here? Or not? So we tried to do,
You have to click on
Part of a
the,
PowerPoint, it's gonna reference the file at where it was.
oh,
Is it a web?
no, this is straight on the,
Just pop the flash
oh, there
drive.
you go. Oh, there you go. I just can't see the.
So we tried to do like a demonstration comparing the 2 systems. So since we have them both installed, compare green to green, red to red, blue to blue, white to white. And so it's hard to tell in this, but one of the concerns when we were looking at maybe putting this in was that they wouldn't be bright enough, like they wouldn't illuminate enough of the dome, and so they wouldn't really be able to take the place of a real cove lighting system. And certainly, this was more of a, the idea originally was kind of like, hey, we can do something kind of on the cheap. Let's put something in, and hopefully in the future we can work towards getting something higher end, something that's going to be more robust. Because once it's in there, then you can start showing people what you can do. And you can start doing really cool things. And then you can start saying, hey, if you give me some money, I could make this even better. And so it's basically starting small and working up. I mean, in a planetarium without any money, you got to start small and you got to use what you got. And giving students the opportunity to have this kind of experience is amazing too. I mean, and for them to be here, I mean, this is the first time that I've brought students to GLPA, and it's amazing to have them be able to share this with you guys. They're very excited to talk about what they've done, so if you have any questions, either ask us now when we have some questions time, but otherwise, come and see us. I don't know anything about the project, I just kind of made them do it. And I told them, I'm like, if you guys do this, I can't help you, so just find help somewhere else. But they're excited to talk about it, they're passionate, and it's just kind of fun. And it's something that you can do on practically no budget and do something neat, so.
Yeah, with that, we do have time for some questions.
I don't know if you want to use the microphone. So I've used some of the LED strip lights, but for very simple things. So you're using the 3-color strip, which is what, 4-wire control? What did you cut it up into sections?
It's 3-wire control.
Okay.
Yep, it's 3-wire control. You have a.
So
We have a voltage, a ground, and then the data, actually. These are one step up from
Okay,
the
so the
old-
strip actually has an address?
Yes, the strip is addressable. So the data comes from the Arduino, and so the addressable line runs into the LEDs directly.
How does it know its address? Is it just like?
It's a specific line that runs through these. I don't know, it runs straight to the chips on the LED, but then we only have to power and ground them. So,
Okay.
I don't know as far as the way they're built. I have seen the ones before that I've used with just the red, green, and blue, and those are the ones that you can't control per LED. But
Okay, so you can actually, the individual chip has an
Yep.
address.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Essentially.
Okay, so
Yep.
you only need to run one set of control wires from
Yes.
an Arduino box to the strip.
exactly.
It's, having to break it up into 6 sections is just a matter of power
Power,
management.
Yep, exactly. So then.
Dad runs the whole thing, but the power split up for this.
So as you go into the setup here again, the green wire is literally the only wire that goes from your Arduino to your lights. All 1,700 of them.
Okay,
And that, and it's one connection that runs, we can connect those together. We just solder joints, and things like that for every string of LEDs. And they all go one direction. And then the only thing that we have to source is the power for each string.
got it.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty
it's-
cool.
They're super cool.
Really cool.
Any other questions?
Is there any other questions today? Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming to this presentation.